Peace and love, everyone. Thanks for being here this morning. I appreciate it. And for all of those who are here by recording, I appreciate you too. And thanks for letting me know that you're here, dropping into the comments over there on recorded land. So today we're continuing in our Yoga Sutra examination, and we're up to number 1.45. What we've been doing here is been trying to show that there are many different styles of meditation, all of which have a single thing in common, which is mental focus and breath practice. So, breath and mental focus. And one can meditate on pretty much anything in order to train the brain. When I first started meditation back in 77, I think I used the number one. It was an easy thing to pick. Also, it reflected the oneness of being, but it was the number one. It could be any object at all. But we're going to talk about why one particular object might be more helpful than others. And that's what we're going to get to today. And so I'm going to just read the translation of Yoga Sutra 1.45 to you, and then we're going to discuss it as I often do. And so listen attentively, maybe even close your eyes for a sec. And subtle objects without intermediary signs are comprehended. And what this means is that the energy of the object, the subtle energy of the object upon which you're meditating, upon which you're concentrating, well, the intermediary signs, the object, the idea, or the name, or the considerations of the object itself go away. And we've talked about this a whole bunch of times over the last few years, where the language of your meditation, chanting in your head over and over, and then the chant just falls away, and you're just left with breath. So at that point, there's no intermediary sign. There's no, here's a word for you, a lingua, which is non-linguistic. There's no naming of it. There's only the breath itself. And then the subtle object is comprehended in the elimination of the object, of the chant, of the prayer, of the mantra. When that falls away, or if you're meditating on a vase, say for instance, you're meditating on a vase, and all of the things you can think about the vase. Oh, it's blue, it's white, it's dark on the bottom, it looks like a sky, those seem to be clouds. How did they do that? And all these are gifts, by the way. I didn't buy any of these. These are all gifts to me, and it was very generous Vermont class over the years. They're super nice. But if you're contemplating the vase, and pretty soon, eventually, you run out of things to think about it. Where'd the glass come from? What's it made of? What's the fire? All these kinds of questions you could ask. And as you contemplate the nature of the vase itself, it's empty, it's round, it's opened, it's closed, all these things, pretty soon all the thoughts just drop away, and you're left with, sort of like the vase, the emptiness inside the vase, where there is no there's only air. There's no form inside the air of the vase. There's the shape of the vase, but the air itself takes on the shape of the vase, and which is what happens to us too. The divine takes on our shape, but we can be inside that empty space. And you never push metaphors too far. So I'm going to read another one. The subtlety of possibility. I'm going to start over. The subtlety. Yes, I was right. The subtlety of possible objects of concentration ends only at the unmanifested, at the undefinable. So the concept is that the supreme self, big capital S, or the truth is, with two capital S's, the supreme self, the divine being, God, however you want to name this ineffable being, this unmanifested beingness, everything begins and ends there. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where the micro is the same as the macro. The divine self, the embodiment of our universe inside the beingness of God, is the same in the micro size and at a sub-particle level, but also inside of us, it's the same being. And so every object, you could contemplate the moon, or the space station or something. You could contemplate anything you want to, because ultimately, when all of the contemplation falls away, you're left with the subtlety of the object itself, which is always the divine being. At the very center of everything is the divine being. And that's the point of meditation, is to step aside enough from our own stories that we tell ourselves about who we are, even as they run inside ourselves that we don't even hear until suddenly we pay attention. Those stories aren't who we are. And we subtly, as we aim toward the subtle nature of any object, we discover the self itself. And so that led me, this is when I read all this stuff so many decades ago, and I had come back with this extra dose of chi, of prana, of Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call this energy, this auric energy, this chakra energy. It's all one. It's all one energy at its core, at its center of its being. I came back with this extra dose, and once I found that I had this extra dose, as I read this, these sutras and this one in particular, I thought to myself, "Wait a minute! If all meditation on an object leads to the subtlety, the subtle nature, the supreme self, why not pick the one thing that actually is the thing itself that I can feel? This prana that I came back with, which is the thing that I feel between my palms. You know, you can take off these things for a moment. They keep my I get nerve damage from climbing. I can feel the divine energy here. It's the same as here. Why not use that feeling of the tingle, of the warmth, of the energy of the presence as the focal point of all of my meditations? And so I learned to use my body and my mind, objects and language, physicality, muscle structure and things with my breath in order to find this subtle energy. I was always in pursuit of the subtle energy of myself, the thing that I know the best, the thing that is most connected to me, my own self. And so as I began as I deepened my meditation practice, as I began it after my NDE, but deepened it having started years before, but as I shifted it, I guess I could say, I shifted it from, uh, I really understood that the purpose of the breath and the mental focus is the access of the subtle body energy. And so then I would, inside of all of my practices, whenever I felt it, I would aim myself there and still chant or just breathe or use my body, but always feeling this divine energy that is myself. And the thing of it is, the more one practices with that, the more one becomes that self, that true self. And that's one of the great teachings of the Yoga Sutras. It's also the teaching of Jesus. Make your eye single and your body will be filled with light. I'm making my eye single on the energy that I am. And maybe you didn't come back from your NDE because you didn't have one with an extra dose of this stuff, but I am willing to believe that most of the people here have had an inkling, if not more, of that. You have felt it in the mystical experiences that you've had. When the dead come to visit, the loving dead, the deceased beloveds, when they come to visit and they give you message of joy or presence or well-being, when that happens, that's what I'm talking about. I have long talked about aiming toward the remembrance and the recollection of the divine experience that you had, your mystical experience, your spiritually transformative experience. And the reason is this: because when one contemplates that thing, that object, that experience, then when the experience itself begins to, the memory of it, the recollection of it, what was going on, the meaning of it, all these things. By the way, we are never going to find the meaning of it. Is the meaning of it is the subtle energy. That's the meaning of it. And it can't be, it's ineffable. It's a lingua, unspeakable, non-linguistic. But it is something that you've felt. And so in your meditation, aim toward that. Aim toward the feeling of that you experienced. And when you feel it, and add that feeling of it to your breath practice. Keep your mind, when you feel it, keep your mind on that energy. And so when I'm meditating into my root and my navel, as we did in months past, and involving the palms of my hands, making this triangular shape, the navel, the root, the palms, I'm feeling the divine energy, the ball of chi, and I'm using the ball of chi as my focal point for my meditation when my language falls away, when the object of my meditation falls away. I hope this is making sense to you all. Good morning to you all out there, Martina, Lynn, Janet, and Kristen. I hope this is making sense to you. We talk about this in depth at the Kriya Yoga class on Tuesdays. You're welcome to join us. We just finished 145, and so we're moving on to 1.46. So in the coming weeks, I'll probably just do Kriya Yoga one day a week, because that's where we will we will have caught up. Stumble in there. All right. So this is what I concluded. Meditation not involving thought by means of direct focus upon the subtle object of the divine beloved with nothing else. It's the one thing I've wanted since I've come back. The oneness, the union again. And that is the object of my meditation, of my lifelong practice, to be in that space again. And what happens, as I've said dozens of times, when the self stops self-identifying and steps aside and steps aside and steps aside, the very goodness at your core, the golden light goodness at your core, naturally fills the empty space. It just shows itself. And so I choose that as my meditation. Of all the different forms I practice on top of that, that is the foundational practice. To feel, to be in, to use the a-lingua, divine energy, prana, chi, all these different names for it. Because when that happens, we connect directly to God, right here, right now. And it's like being held and beholding at the same time. I'm beholding this divine energy, but I'm also being held by this divine energy because it wants to show itself. So that's my little talk this morning. I hope that's helpful. I hope it's clear. That's really what I'm hoping here, is that it's clear. So we used to practice Om here when we first began these practices together. And I thought we could try that a little bit again today, because one of the things about chanting Om is that you can really feel the vibration in your chest and in your throat and in your head and in your belly, depending on how you say it, and where you feel that vibration. But we're going to do a little bit of that today. And then I'm going to drop into my regular meditation practice. And I invite you to practice with me. And if you don't like my chanting of Om, just turn down your speakers and do your own thing. I'm still a beginner with Om because I gave it up 40 years ago when I went into the church. Because as I've said before, I was trying to hide out in the church and not get outed as being a near-death experiencer who's widely read and used the techniques I found in the Yoga Sutra, because I didn't want to get caught and kicked out, which happened to a friend of mine, something like that. So my hands are flat on my hands are in this mula shape. Sorry about that. Then my thumbs are touching. My spine is straight. I'm going to move my mic a little closer. I'm going to sit up straighter. Feet are flat on the floor. Knees are kind of at a 90 if you can do it. And relax everything that I don't need to support myself. That's where I'm going to begin. So feel my sits bones, my thighs, relax my thighs, my calves, my feet. Stretch my face a little. Relax my shoulders. And we'll talk you through the Om a little bit. So I'm going to fill my belly and then let my lungs expand. And then there's a pause at the top. There's a pause at the top and a pause at the bottom. That's the empty space that you're in. And as I say, oh, I shift my mind to feeling the vibration in my chest. Oh, I kind of drive my vibration into my heart chakra. Oh, and then as I'm running through my breath, I close my lips. My lips are open. Om, so you see here, it's the same sound. The only difference is your lips are closed or your lips are open. All right, so go. And then I feel it in my throat chakra, kind of up at the top of the palate, the top of my mouth. What's that called? Way up at the cave at the top of your mouth. I feel it in that whole space, and then repeat. And on the empty space, exhale, inhale, feeling my breath go down my spine, using my concentration, filling my belly, letting my lungs fill naturally. Don't get hyperventilated. Control your own breath and the oxygenation of your own blood. You're not trying to get high on the oxygenation. The Om becomes the object of the meditation. Thanks for being here today. I hope this was helpful. Peace, fire. Good, Kristen. That's what I want to hear. I hope it was fiery for you too. The Bhagavad Gita talks about as one advances in the practices, one creates heat inside one's body, even while sitting motionless. Prana. Peace to you all. Thanks for being here.